The new nickname and that stupid chant, coupled with everyone's jibes about how much Vanessa must care about Rachel, had made for a very bad couple of weeks. Now, however, the Christmas holidays were here, and Rachel could look forward to 2 whole glorious Vanessa-free weeks. Rachel loved Christmas, apart from the cold and the snow which had already begun to fall. In later years, Rachel would come to miss the snow, but right now she just saw it as a cold, wet nuisance that quickly turned into a slushy, disgusting brown nuisance. The first Monday of the holidays found Rachel sitting alone in her room reading. "What are you doing in here?" asked Natalie when she came in with a pile of Rachel's freshly laundered clothes. "Well, I assume I am allowed to sit in my own bedroom, aren't I?" said Rachel. "Well, yeah, of course you are," replied Natalie. "But you've been spending all your time at Holly's the last couple of days. What's up? You two had a falling out or something?" "No," said Rachel. "She's just off at the pictures today with a couple of girls out of her class." "What, didn't they invite you?" asked Natalie. "Well, yeah, but I didn't feel like it. I don't really like going to the pictures with Holly," said Rachel. "She just always wants to sit in the front row and it just gives me a headache." "Okay," said Natalie, putting a pile of clothes on the end of Rachel's bed. "You can put your clothes away then. And just make sure they go in your wardrobe, not on the floor." "I will," said Rachel, getting off her bed to do just that. "Aren't you working today?" "Nope," said Natalie, grinning. "Sorry, you won't get to see Will today." "Shut up," said Rachel, looking away from her mother and blushing. "Anyway, I'm just off to walk Chris up to Jack's now," said Natalie. "Why?" asked Rachel. "It's only up the road. Can't he walk there by himself?" "Not this time," said Natalie. "He's sleeping over, and you should see how much stuff he's taking. I've got to help him carry it all. Anyway, do you want to come with us, or do you want to stay here?" "What, you couldn't let me stay here by myself?" asked Rachel, excited. "Well, yeah, I'm just going to drop him off and then come straight back. I'll only be gone about 20 minutes. You can stay here if you want to, but you stay downstairs in case something happens and you need to get out quick. And that fire stays off, and so does the TV." "What?" Rachel exclaimed. "Why can't I watch telly?" "Because I don't want you touching anything electrical," replied Natalie. "In fact, I think I'm going to unplug everything just to make sure." Rachel held her tongue for fear of saying the wrong thing and losing her chance to stay home alone, but secretly she thought that all these rules were a bit over the top. She was 12 years old now. She should be able to stay home by herself for 20 minutes without all this silly overprotectiveness. She began to feel a little bitter and resentful at the thought that her own mother didn't trust her, until finally her feelings got the better of her and she couldn't hold back the words any longer. "Fine," she blurted out in a very childish and petulant tone. "But when I grow up, I'm telling you, I'm going to live by myself. I'm never getting married, never having kids, and then I can just do whatever I want to all the time." It was a silly, childish wish that she would one day come to regret expressing out loud. Despite the over-the-top rules, Rachel was actually very excited about the prospect of staying by herself. It didn't last. The novelty wore off within about 5 minutes. She sat on the sofa, huddled under a blanket to keep warm, and wished that she had remembered to bring her book downstairs with her. She actually began to wish that she had gone to see the movie with Holly. Whatever she had told her mother, Rachel always enjoyed going to the movies with Holly, when it was just the two of them. But this time, all of Holly's school friends were going too, and the truth was that Rachel was just scared. Nobody else had ever liked her, so she couldn't see why Holly's friends should be any different. Maybe they would spend the whole time picking on her, and if Holly was forced to choose, would she be on Rachel's side? She might end up losing the only friend she had ever had, and she just couldn't take that risk. With Natalie working the evening shift all that week, and not leaving the house until after Gary got home, Rachel didn't get her chance to confront Will until Christmas Eve. when her mum and dad went out and he came to babysit. She more or less pounced on him the moment he walked through the door. "Well, you weren't actually supposed to say that to her," said Will after she'd told him the story. "I was just trying to make you feel better." "So you lied to me then?" asked Rachel. "Well, no, that's not what I mean," said Will. "I wasn't lying to you. I believed what I told you. Think about it, Rach. How do you think that best friend of hers feels about how much time she spends on you? I bet she gets jealous sometimes. But you weren't meant to say that to her. Saying that sort of thing to someone like her is only going to give her something else to laugh at you for." "Yeah, I noticed," said Rachel sulkily. "So you've had a bad couple of weeks then, have you?" asked Will. "Well, you can say that again," said Rachel. "On top of everything, I've got a new nickname now as well. Little Willie." "Oh yeah, I get that one sometimes," said Will. "Really?" asked Rachel. "Of course, my name's William." "Ha ha," laughed Chris. "So we're like William's kids. Get it? 'Cause we're called Williams and William looks after us?" Will forced a smile and said, "Very good. Now, what do you want to do? Video? Board games?" They passed the time watching television until 11 o'clock when Will said, "All right, I think it's time for bed." "Aw, well, Chris, come on, it's Christmas Eve. Can't we just wait up for Mum and Dad?" "Absolutely not," exclaimed Will. "If you're still up when they get home, they'll sack me. Come on, I've let you stay up late enough as it is. Off to bed now, go on." Rachel went upstairs and into her room, knowing all the time she was changing and getting into bed that it was a complete waste of time. She knew she wouldn't be able to sleep anyway. She never could on Christmas Eve. She just lay there, trying to sleep for ages. And after a while she blinked, or at least that's what it seemed like, and suddenly saw light flooding through the gap in her curtains. She raced downstairs and found her mum, dad and brother in the living room. "About time!" Christopher yelled as Rachel walked in. Natalie and Gary always liked to have everyone together before they got to the present opening. Chris ran over to his presents. "Well, it's not like I can't tell what this one is anyway," he said, staring at the bicycle-shaped present next to the tree with a huge smile on his face. "I've been dying to open it." "Yeah," said Gary. "Santa told us he had a lot of trouble wrapping that one." "Chimney must have given him a bit of trouble as well," said Rachel, grinning. "Yeah," said Gary. "In the end he just knocked on the door and got us to let him in the front door with it. And then once he was in, he wouldn't leave. He just kept going on about awkward presents. I've never known anyone like him for whinging and whining. I thought he was never going to shut up. We had to kick him out in the end so we could get some sleep." Rachel laughed, but Chris looked stricken. "Oh no," he cried out. "You can't kick Santa out. He's going to put me straight on the naughty list now. I won't be getting anything at all next year." "Your dad's just kidding, Chris," said Natalie. "We wouldn't kick Santa out. He must have just got down the chimney by magic like he always does." Chris seemed to be satisfied with this, and when he turned away to examine his new bike, Natalie turned to Gary and said in a quiet voice, "I wish you wouldn't do that to him." "Calm down, I'm just having a laugh," said Gary. "Anyway, he's 9 years old. I think that's getting a bit old for Santa. I don't really think he believes in him anymore anyway. I think he just plays on it." Rachel unwrapped a brand new television and suddenly thought she understood why her mother had gone without the shoes that she needed. "Brilliant," she said. "Thanks, Mum and Dad." "We thought you'd like it," said Natalie. "But it means that from now on you do your homework down here where we can see you." The rest of the morning was spent, as usual, playing with their new toys, eating chocolates and savouring the delicious smell of roasting turkey, which had always been one of Rachel's favourite things. The family always got together at Grandma Wet's house for Christmas lunch, but her oven wasn't very big, so Natalie always cooked the turkey and took it over there. About 11 o'clock, they all piled into the car and went to Grandma Wet's house, where they joined the rest of the family. Natalie had two sisters, Yvonne, who was only 10 years older than Rachel and still lived at home with Grandma Wait, and Linda, who would also be there with her husband and 3 boys. Natalie also had a brother, but he probably wouldn't be joining them as he lived on the other side of the world, though they could never be entirely sure, as he had previously been known to turn up unexpectedly. A fond morning of playing with her cousins and unwrapping a beautiful jumper from Grandma Waite and chocolate from our aunties, and then it was time for that long-awaited turkey lunch, followed by Christmas pudding and custard. And then they all piled back into the car and went to see Gary's family. Rachel always thought that they didn't see nearly enough of Grandma and Grandad Williams, who she thoroughly enjoyed spending time with. They were quite strictly religious, but they were also lots of fun, especially Grandad, who liked to make funny faces and tell those kinds of jokes that make you groan rather than laugh. They spent a few short hours there, and then it was back to Grandma Waite's house for dinner. This was followed by cake, as Christmas Day also happened to be Gary's birthday. It was a really busy, fun-filled day that Rachel always loved while it lasted, and it never seemed long enough. Shortly after Christmas, Rachel was sitting in her bedroom watching a new television when she heard a high-pitched scream. She raced downstairs and out the front door to find Chris sitting on the floor next to his new bike, crying and clutching his bleeding leg. "I thought that was a girl screaming," laughed Rachel. "Shut up and just go and get Mum," Chris wailed between sobs. "It's all right," said Natalie suddenly at Rachel's side. "I heard. I'm here." She bent down and lifted Chris to his feet and then helped him inside the house. As she walked past Rachel, she stopped and said, "I was just going to come get you, actually. Get your shoes on. We're going for a walk." "A walk?" replied Rachel, curious. "Where are we going?" "You'll see," replied Natalie mysteriously. Rachel was intrigued. "Come on," she pleaded. "Tell me where we're going." "No," replied Natalie, grinning. "You'll see when we get there. Just go and put your coat and shoes on while I get a plaster for Chris's knee." Right on cue, at the mention of his injury, Chris, who had been quietly and calmly watching this exchange, suddenly said, "Ow, ow, ow!" "Come on then," said Natalie, taking Chris's hand and leading him into the kitchen. "What were you doing going off by yourself anyway? I told you to wait for me." By the time Rachel had found her coat and shoes and got back to the hall, Chris and Natalie were already waiting for her. Chris was back on his bike with a plaster on his knee and a huge smile on his face. "Amazing, isn't it?" said Natalie. "The mysterious healing properties of the plaster. He stopped crying the second I put it on. It was only a tiny graze anyway. I think he'll live." "So where are we going?" asked Rachel as they set off up the street, with Chris riding ahead on his bike and then stopping and waiting for them to catch up. "Never you mind yet," said Natalie. "You'll see when we get there." "Will I like it?" asked Rachel. "Oh, I think so," said Natalie, smiling. A few minutes later, they turned and started walking up the garden path. "Hey, this is Jack's house," said Chris, looking surprised. "Oh, are we getting a puppy?" "Yep," replied Natalie. "What, really?" said Rachel, excited. "I saw them when I dropped Chris off the other day, but I had to talk your dad into it first." Once they got the fluffy little German Shepherd puppy safely back home, Rachel said, "We're going to have to go shopping. We haven't got any food or anything for him." "Yes, we have," replied Natalie, "upstairs in the wardrobe, where you two couldn't find it." "Sneaky," said Rachel. "Yeah, well, now we have a bigger problem," said Natalie. "We'll have to think of a name for him. Any ideas?" "What about Lucas?" suggested Chris. Natalie looked around at Chris, surprised, and said, "Where did that one come from?" Rachel rolled her eyes and said, "It's a new boy in his class. He's called Lucas. Chris is completely obsessed with him for some reason." Chris punched his sister on the arm and said, "I am not." Rachel punched Chris back and said, "Yes, you are. And Lucas is a stupid name for a dog anyway." Natalie said, "Oi, you two, stop it." "Sorry, Chris, but I agree with Rachel. I don't really like Lucas anyway, not for a dog." "Why don't we just shorten it to Luke?" everyone agreed that Luke was a great name for the newest member of their family. It wasn't long before Rachel couldn't remember a time when they didn't have Luke. Every night, either Natalie or Gary would take him out for a walk so that he could, do what he had to do. Then they would come back and put some food and water out for him in the kitchen, where he sat on a pile of old blankets and towels in the corner of the room. For the first couple of nights he had whined and scratched at the door, and Rachel had begged to be allowed to have him sleep in her bed, but her mother had refused, saying it was unsafe and unhygienic. By about the fourth night, he seemed to accept the sleeping arrangements, and had even started to go straight to the kitchen after his evening walk. Now the only problem they faced was that of getting him to stop trying to eat everything that wasn't nailed down. They couldn't leave anything out at all if they didn't want it chewed to bits. He had already eaten Gary's watch and a few of Chris's Lego blocks, and Rachel had only just managed to rescue her favourite hairbrush before it disappeared down his throat. But he was lots of fun to play with, and Rachel very much enjoyed the novel experience of having a creature around who was always happy to see her. She was playing in the garden with him one afternoon when Natalie came out to ask her if she'd got her things ready for tomorrow. "No, not yet," said Rachel. "Well, you better go get it done," said Natalie. "You don't want to forget anything." "Right," said Rachel miserably. The familiar depression was setting in again. Had it really been 2 weeks? She'd been having so much fun that she had successfully managed to put it out of her mind, but now it came crashing back. Tomorrow she would have to go back and face that nightmare again. That night, the monster chased Rachel off the cliff for the first time in a fortnight.